Okay, we're back. It's COMP1011. It's week 9, lesson 9, part 2. Some of us had configuration issues up until now, but we got, some of us have less problems. We made this work. Okay, so if you notice, guys, that I have my app interface here, I can actually zoom in a little bit by pressing the plus buttons. Let's look at the interface just a little bit. On the top, I have the device I'm targeting. So right now I'm targeting the Nexus 1. I can also target my Nexus 5. Now I have these two devices because I've configured them here in AVD Manager. Okay, so I've configured two devices. One that targets 2.3.3 and the other one that targets 5.0.1. Okay. And if I look at this one here, Nexus 5, right, which is API level 21, that's the target, right? Let me ask you this question. What API level am I running right now, right, with 4.1? And if you're not sure what it is, let's try this out. So if I go to my SDK manager, if I look at 4.1, right, to see what API level I'm targeting API level 16. So that means I can't run this on a device that's lower than 16. I've got to run it on a device that's 16 or higher, right? So back to my AVD manager, this one is targeting 21, right? That's the minimum SDK. Now my question to you is, do you think that if it's a Nexus 5, do you think it can run an app that's made for version 4.1?
Yes, it can.
Right? You know that because you run a thing like that. Now it says emulated. Some of these options I have down here, it says use host GPU. I'm unclick that for now. And some of these other things like my device, ARM is fine. Skin with dynamic hardware controls, that's fine. Front camera emulated or none. Let's do emulated for now. Leave that alone. And then press OK. It's going to generate, it's going to modify my device. So now I have a Nexus 5 device and a Nexus 1 device. This device can only run 2.3.3. This device can run anything up to 5.0.1. Okay. If I start this device to check that it works, all right, let's do this next piece again. If it has any issues, it'll error right here, right? So this is the first piece. Let's run our virtual machine here. So I've got, again, I'm running on the Nexus 5 is what I'm running on. I can now close this down because I'm not managing it anymore. Here's my emulator. Now it takes quite a bit of time to launch, if you notice. Is yours also taking this much time? Because it's actually bringing up, it's trying to emulate a real phone as much as possible. Now there are some packages you can download if you've got something like a virtual machine, right? Like if you use VMware Fusion or VirtualBox. While this is doing this, let me show you something you can do as well. I can download Android, and if I go Android VMware, right? Or if I go VMware image, right? It has a VMware image for 4.2, right? Let's just go VMware image. You can actually download and install an image either for VirtualBox and VMware, which would run much faster for you, as an example, than running in a virtual device. The challenge, I'll just tell you this right now, the challenge is connecting to this device. It looks like a virtual device, but there's additional challenges in connecting to it because now it's you're running a virtual machine outside of Eclipse. So just in case you want to try it, if you want to try it at home, we're not going to try it here, right? You could definitely download and install an Android image for VirtualBox or VMware, install VirtualBox or VMware, and again, I think you can get it as students, you can get VMware as well. And then what you can do is you can try to connect to it via Eclipse. There's a bit of an extra step in doing so. So I'm going to let this Nexus 5 kind of load up. It takes a little bit of time. And let me know if you guys are up and running yet. Hey, I'm up and running. You guys up? It should be about the same speed, you know. Now I'm running this on my Mac as an example, and I'm good to go. I'm running this now. It says it's charging, but I'm not actually running my app. So let's say this app that I got in the background here, I want to run it over here. How do I do that? Well, remember I created a target device. Target device is right here. It says Nexus 1. I got to point it to Nexus 5. That's the first thing I got to do. Okay, so now this changes a little bit how it looks. And then the next thing I got to do is I've got to target so that way when I look at this, I've got to have a run configuration. Now I deleted my run configurations because I switched workspaces. So I got to create a new one. Right, so I got to go to Run Configurations, double click on this Android configuration. Instead of New Configuration, I'm going to call it Default. And I'm going to target my project, which is this first app. I need to do that. If I don't have that configuration, it's not cool. Look, also it says automatically pick compatible device. I want to leave that the way it is and click Run. If I do that, and if I've done everything correctly, then slowly, I'm hoping it's not going to run it again. That would be very bad. It is running it again. That would be bad. I'm not going to do that. No. Let's do that virtual. Let's do that run configuration again. We don't want it to launch another one. Run. Now, it says no active compatible AVDs or devices found. I could relaunch configuration after device or whatever is there. Okay, so that's that configuration. Let me go one more time. And I can also do a target. So I can go here and click this one on because this one's what's running right now. And click onto it and press run. Now unfortunately what I do is launch my AVD again. So I'll just shut this one down. If I leave this one on, it's going to take double the memory, right? It's trying, right, to do it. And the other option I have here for target is always prompt to pick a device, right, which I can always do. And let's go back to this one that's not running because I might as well just stop it and run. And it says launch a new virtual device, so choose a running virtual device. And it doesn't seem to see my running virtual device, which is right here, right? I don't know if you guys have the same issues. So I'm just going to go and launch a new virtual device. And I'm going to take a little bit more time. Basically what you need to do is you need to make a connection. And once you've made a connection between your Android virtual device and your Eclipse, then you can start doing the testing. Until you have a connection, you can't run your program on your Android virtual device. And again, I'm showing you we can try different configuration settings for your run configuration, but until you make that connection, you can't run it. So we're almost there. I'll wait till this thing loads up again. So while this is running, I want to talk about a couple things, so not to waste time. Again, the main activity, like we mentioned last time, loads first, right? And of course now I'm getting the same bloody errors I used to get. Did you guys launch yet?
Well,
What was that?
To launch my app, but it was launching the one we did last week, not this one we just set up.
It's okay. Same thing for you? So I have a nice little PowerPoint presentation I was going to do today. You know, let me just go in here and I'll show you which one it was. So really what we try and do with this thing is, let's take a look here. Piece parts of your app, when we look at it, let me see if I can launch this thing. I don't like that. There we go. So piece parts of your app, if you look at it, there is the top bar, which is typically what we get in any app. This, anything in a text field like this is called a text view. So there's a series of views that we're going to see. These images here are image views. Okay? And then this area in here is the client area where our app is displayed. The bottom button are simulated buttons that we're going to use to kind of tell us where the system bar is going to be on an Android device. And if you notice, what they're targeting Android 4.3 and Android 4.4. They're trying to compile with Android 4.4 on their system. So we weren't quite off, actually. Trying to run 5, it's just not working with 5. Hey, I'm running now. My camera. It's simulating the camera. It's slow, yeah. And I'm running like I said, full blown, you know, everything on this thing, right? If I go back to Eclipse, emulator window was out of view and was recentered. Cool. Now I'm going to run this thing again, make sure that it runs. Right? Look, it doesn't find a compatible device, right? Because my launch configuration says always prompt to pick, right? That's bad. I'll wait till that's done and go back to the PowerPoint presentation. All right. So again, when we launch typically when we launch an app, what we have is a, what we have is we did this piece on a working system, and there's different API levels. At the time of writing of this book that I'm using, which is Android How to Program by Deedle and Deedle, right? They had version 4.4 of the SDK, which is version API level 19, which is what they had at the time, right? And they were using I don't know if it was 4.4 or 4.2, if I go back. So they're compiling with 4.4, but they were targeting 4.3 and 4.3 for the minimum. Okay. So once we've done that, they just do the same thing. Now they chose their little mascot. We're choosing our default, right? And as we go through, we choose a blank activity, and there's three types of activities that are most common we're going to be using. A blank activity is a single screen app, if you will, or a single scene is what we're targeting. A full screen app is a single screen app, right? But it occupies the entire screen, so you have to toggle it for visibility from a controls perspective. And then there's a master detail view or flow, which gives you a list of items, just like on the Mac. If you look at the iOS devices, if you're running with Xcode, it's called a master detail view. It's the same thing, is what they're pretty much called. Okay, we choose main activity, just like we did before, and we skip forward. And as we skip forward, what we have is this graphical layout that gives us our target, as an example. And this piece here is our package explorer, right? And on the right, we have our outline. Okay, so let's see if I can take you right to the application again. So again, here's our outline, right? And if you notice, if I go to the detail view, so here's my XML, right? Now it's installing my app. Hey, it's installing my app, man. It's the first time it's happening. Take a look. This here is the console that's giving me back feedback, right? It's taking its sweet time to install the app. Well, let's see if it actually does it. Did it ever try and do that before? I don't think it did. I don't think it ever tried to install my app. And that's good. That's the first time I did that. It's still running in the background here, but I'll let it do what it's going to do. So if you notice here in the background, we have a relative layout view. This is our outliner, and this outliner is also available on other systems like Mac or iOS, right, when we're designing the view. One thing that differs from this and your Windows Visual Studio is Visual Studio does almost like absolute view default, right? So you actually drag and drop, and wherever you put this stuff, that's where it is, right? Because you're making Windows forms, right? When you do stuff for Windows Phone, it's a little bit different, and it does allow you need to have the same kind of thing. Let me just go back. Okay, this is good. Now let's see if it finished installing. It's still installing. Now, as you can tell, it's really slow. Starting activity. Okay, this is good. Success. Installed it. Starting activity, and that should come up in a second. Okay, it says, do you want to monitor? I do, right? And if I wait for a second, don't give me the camera again, man. I don't want the camera again. It is. Here's the camera again. I love it. It's my fault. I tried to click into it. I'm not patient with these things, eh? It's my problem. I don't know if you guys got the same bloody thing. Okay.
Yeah, but we type the way we just need to modify it to
Okay, there it is. Yay! Whoa, that took a long time. That only took 2 hours this time, guys. Right? This is good. Okay, so again, I've got a couple things going on here that's slowing me down. Let's terminate some of my applications, right? To see if I can speed things up just a little bit for myself, to give myself a little bit more memory. I'm going to go to my virtual device here, and I'm going to suspend it for now. Give myself a little bit more performance. Okay. Are you guys here with me now? Can you guys do this? You see this? Not yet? How about you? How about you guys over there? Did you guys figure it out? Did it?
It's not working.
Not working for you?
My layout's still loading.
The layout's still loading? Okay. So, like I said, I have this relative layout right here, right? Now, this is the typical name we get. So pay attention, guys, because I'm going to try and get to the next piece. Sorry, I gotta rifle through here. I gotta trudge along, right? So my welcome project that we're creating, let's go back here for a second. Again, there's different piece parts to it. So one piece is the outliner. There's the other piece, which is the activity that we're having right here. This is the package explorer. And as we go through the bottom, we have these different windows. One of them is the console. The other one is logcat. And what logcat does is it shows us kind of a log of what we're doing with the device. So if I go back to my program here, let's take a look. Here's my console. Console told me what happened with the device. I'm just going to open this a little larger. Okay, so my console is telling me my activity manager, starting my intent. We're going to talk about Android intents for a second. And here is my intent. I have this, my main activity is launching. Right? Here in logcat, it's telling me any kind of issues with the device, my communication with the device. And by the way, here in logcat is where I can actually download and install applications right to my virtual device. Okay. Most of the time, though, we want to look at the console for errors. I'm just going to minimize this for a second so we can get maximum size of my screen here. So I've got my first app, and if you notice, I can do a couple things to it. I can zoom in really close, right? So I can work on my different piece parts of it, right? I can go back to 1-to-1, like this actual size, right? I can keep skipping back out. So these are the controls that I can do that with. If you notice right now, I'm working on an Nexus 5, right? And my orientation is portrait. I can switch this to landscape, just like I did last time. And you can see what it would look like. All right, so all these things are good. I can do the same thing with my emulator, but for now, just so that way, you know, I don't mess it up, I'm going to leave it as is. Because I don't want, I've just got it working and I'm good to go, right? All right, so I added a hello world. Here's my hello world again. And again, if I want to make this a little better, we're going to change this to welcome, or just like it says in our little PowerPoint presentation in a second. All right, so if you notice, these are different things. This is part of our package explorer. We've looked at this before. There's a couple of things we should talk about. There's a drawable folder. Every package, every project has a drawable folder. And this folder is where we keep all of our images. Now there's different size images that we keep in our drawable folder. And by default, when we load our package up, our project has different size images for our Android mascot that comes with it. Right? So if I look back in our drawable folder, and right here on the left hand side, our drawable, there's a bunch of different folders. There's our HDPI image, there's a MDPI image, an XHDPI image, and so on. They're just larger and larger images to fit on different device sizes. Right? So we have different images So make sure that if we have different resolution, different device resolutions, that they'll work on those different devices. That's what they're for.
What is the IDPI? The one that doesn't have one in it?
That's usually a low DPI. Our device is not low DPI, so it doesn't have that. Okay, let's go back. So that's one. The other one is layout. And again, this one has our activity main.xml file where we can see our graphical layout. So if you notice, that's what I'm clicked on right now. And I have two layouts. I have here, I've clicked on my tab that says graphical layout, and here is the activity main XML file. I can fool with this too, but I highly caution you, right? You know, when I caution you, it's because I have very much experience in how you can mess this crap up, right? So here's an idea about this. Remember in Visual Studio, what if you go into Visual Studio, and this is on the Microsoft side, and you delete an event. Have you ever tried deleting an event in Visual Studio? What happens? Your designer just like cakes, right? Okay. It can happen here too, right? We don't want your design to cake. Because if it cakes here in Eclipse, nothing by God is going to save you, right? So you got to be very careful. Whatever you put in here, right? No, I'm just telling you the truth. This is all XML format, but see how this text view here? Take a look at the text view. No, really, seriously, take a look. This text view is where we're going to put this hello world, right? So I can actually do it in two ways. I can certainly create my my main activity graphically by dragging and dropping, but I can also do it programmatically in my XML view. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. So that's one. The other thing is the values. A lot of times we use values in our properties. What it does is it tells us how we can dimension. We can put like dimensions to resources. So if I go back to my values menu for a second, right? Let's take a look at that. Here's my resources. I'm going to close up all these drawables, right? And if I go to my values, I have my strings.xml file. This is really important, guys. Strings.xml file here, styles.xml, and dimensions. Dimensions is like points that I use that I've defined. Let's go into strings. In my strings, I've got three strings in here. I've got an app name, I've got a hello world, and I've got an action setting string. What I want to do is add in a welcome, like one of those welcome strings. We're going to do that in a second. So this is where you would do that in these values. There's also another set of values for styles for version 11, and another one for styles for version 14. We're not going to touch these ones right now. We're going to worry about this one where it says strings and dimensions. So dimens is actually, these are the default documents that we're going to use to modify, right? And again, if you look at the resource, this is a resource view. This is also an XML view. I can do it both ways, right? Again, for now, I would recommend sticking with the graphic layout view, which does your XML for you, right? Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to make this, change this to welcome, this big, this level here. And if you notice, it's quite large. I also have a little image that I want to put in here, right? You can choose whatever image you want. It's an image view, right, that we can download and install. It's not a problem. It works the same, right? But let's make this big, you know, this kind of label here. We'll make this welcome on the top, right? And if you notice, if I go back to my XML file, not this one, my layout, I have first app up here, right? Can I change this view right here to make it something else? First app. Right now it says first app, and that's the name of my app, right? What was that?
Can you just click on it?
No, it's not something that's clickable. It's not a label, right? Remember, I went down to my strings. Look at my strings. There's my app name. If I double click on my app name, I get this app name called first app, right? I can change this, still keep my app name variable, and this, guys, will be the variable that I can use programmatically as well, right? So I want to change my app name to something else. Let's call it welcome, right? And I can certainly save this now. Okay, when I've done this, and if I go back to my activity main, right? See how it still says first app? Let's go back to my strings for a second, right? I can, again, if I click add, right, I can add a new string that says something else. If I click away and click back, right, even though my value says welcome, right, and here it says hello world. If I change my hello world to something else like hello Tom, right, save this value here too as well. And I go back to my action, and I'll leave that as, the same, right? If I go back to my activity main, right, here's my activity main. It says hello Tom here, and it says welcome. See? So I've actually changed these two things here. So even though we drag and drop labels, we need to use string variables that are held in this values container in here in order to make the changes. Why do you think we do this? Anybody? So again, normally you drag and drop, like in Microsoft, you drag and drop, rename the property, and it's done, right? Why do we need to have a separate file, an XML file for all of our strings? Any idea? We do this because we have a problem for most devices called internationalization. So if I make this string as an example and I put it I hard code it, right? It's more difficult for me to change it from English to Spanish, right, or some other language. But here, I can actually swap out the file and create a Spanish file. So the same label can point to two different files according to what international options I pick, right? So I can choose as many languages as I want, whatever I want to support. And most often than not, you know, for us, we're going to pick English, right? Because we live in an English-speaking country. But what if you want to support something else, like Spanish, Greek, or some Indian language, as an example? How many Indian languages are there, by the way?
37,000.
37,000, really?
Just throwing it out there.
Don't throw it out there, man. Tell me the rest. How many? 102.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's quite a few, right? So we can support some of them. Not all. Not devices don't support every one, but probably the main ones you probably understand, right? If it's supported. But the only way to do that is to have this internationalization idea. And most devices, by the way, iOS also support the same thing as well as Android. So internationalization is going to be something we cover, but we're going to scratch the surface of it because we don't have time to do it all. As you can see, we've had enough time spent on troubleshooting today and last day than more than anything else, which is crazy. It's whacked, right? Okay. So that's one thing. If you look at it, this thing here is called the canvas. And again, canvas is going to be almost like a name we can share. Whether you do development for iOS or Android, it's also called the canvas on iOS, right? It's also called the canvas when we do stuff with games. We have canvas, the canvas element. Canvas seems to be a name that's passed on from one development, a UI development to another, which means it's good. It means we can actually relate to what it means. It means that's where we draw. That's where we're going to drag and drop our controls. Okay. And again, here are the drawables and what they mean. So LDPI is low density DPI, which is about 120 dots per inch. We're probably going to work with HDPI or XHDPI most often. And you also have these other versions for phones that support higher resolutions, right, like the latest phones. So therefore, we have to have different images to hit these other phones. If you don't have the image, if all you had is one, like HDPI, apologize for my rough voice today, Android will try and resize it for you, right? So it'll use the same image. Why is that bad? Well, you're going to get pixelation, right, in different sizes. So it accommodates this by having different sizes. iOS does the exact same thing, except they have image sets. So again, whether Android or iOS, it's the same. You have to deal with these same things. Okay, we have our outline. If you notice right now, we have a relative layout and we have a text view. It's really a good idea to rename these things to make sense for us. So right now we have a relative layout. We should make it something else. We should call it something like welcome relative layout, something that makes sense, and a welcome text view to make it our own. And that's proper for us to do. So how do we do that? Let's go back. So here, over here on the right side, I want to right click, right? If I want to rename this thing, right? if I assign an ID, if I say assign ID, right? And if I change the name, enter a name, I want to make this called, as an example, a welcome relative layout, and press OK. Right? It's going to change the name. That's what I want to do. I don't want to, for whatever reason, try and double click in here and try and do it on my own. You might be able to try and do that. Like, watch, if I double click in here, it's going to take me where? Back into the XML view. I could certainly try and change it here, right? And if you notice, my relative layout now has an additional property, right, called ID. Android ID equals this @ plus ID / welcome relative layout. That is the ID that I can use to access this property, right? We need to give our layouts and views IDs in order for us to access them. If we don't, then we will not be able to access them programmatically in code, right? So again, I'm going to switch back to the graphical layout, right click on TextView, and change the assign an ID to it, okay? Now this is one way of doing it. You can also do it down here in the properties menu. So let's say I assign this, again, I'm going to say welcome TextView. Press OK. And it changes it up here, and if I double click, it takes me back into the XML version, and you can see that it's also added a new property called Android ID equals @ plus ID. And then this is the ID name. Again, really, really important stuff. If you notice also down here, I can also rename it down here. So instead of making it welcome TextView, I can change it here, or I can do it down here in my properties. This is also viable, right? But my hello world, this hello world, no chance in hell are you going to change it manually here. That would be bad form, baby. You want to go into strings here and modify it in here, right? Here's where my hello world is. I changed it to hello Tom, right? But that's where you change it. You create new strings and you do things here. And the same thing goes for dimensions. If I go dimensions, I've got a vertical margin that I set up here, 16 dp, and I've got a horizontal margin. These are my dimensions. If I want to set something to have a certain size, it's down here. I don't do it manually because that means it's manually set. If I do it in code, in this XML document, I can programmatically change it later, right? I don't want to just do it on the design side. Just like we did with Visual Studio, we have two kind of like states, if you will. We have design view, which is this, and we have runtime view, which is what we see when we pull up this, our little mannequin here, right? Now look, I haven't updated. If I run this thing again, right, because right now, right, I've got this thing running, and if I run this thing, if I just pick run again, is it going to run and drag and drop everything again? Well, no. What's going to happen is it should, theoretically, rerun this thing, right, and it should start the activity again. But did it do it? Take a look. I didn't launch it again. I said it launched Android, and it installed my first app APK down here again one time. So I'm going to save all. And if I want to run this thing, right, my default, it's going to try and install it over again, right? Here's where it's going to run it again. Let's see if it's going to run it for the first time again. So it's reinstalling my app, right? When it's done installing, it's going to put it up here, right? But again, look at the console. Every time we reinstall, it's going to take it and load it up into my virtual device. This is important, which means before you test it on your virtual device, make sure here's welcome and here's hello Tom. Those are the changes I made, right? And it took me a few seconds, a few minutes to do that. And we need to know that this is the workflow we're going to use. Okay, that's cool. Let's keep going. Okay, so we changed our device. If I want to put a new welcome string, like hello, right now it's hello world, right, or whatever, or hello Tom, right? I want to create a new string, and I'm going to call it welcome. The string is called welcome to Android app development. That's what I want to put in there, and I want to make the R string, the actual name for the string, I want to call it welcome. Again, how do I do that? I'm going to go hit values, go to strings. Here it is. And I got all these windows open up here. I'm just going to close down dimensions for a second. And in my strings, right, I want to create a new string. So here I'm going to click add. And in here I'm going to go new string, press OK. And I got to put a, again, I got to kind of mention what this string is called, right? So it's going to be called welcome. Now, if I don't choose a new string, so here's a new string, press OK, and right now my string shows nothing, right? It won't keep this string unless I put something in here. So my name has to be welcome, and my value is going to be what I want, which is welcome to, what is it? Welcome to Android app development. Okay. Now I'm going to click away and save. And if you notice, it says welcome string. Once I have this, and it's a welcome string, well, I can point to it, right? Because I have a default button. If I go back to my main activity.xml file, I'll pull this down a little bit. My hello world, my hello Tom, right now, if you look where it's pointing, right? It's pointing to that string. Well, I can repoint it. I can point it to welcome. I just made that string, right? And press OK. And now it says welcome to Android app development. Okay. So that's the first change we need to make. The second one is we've got this welcome string, and this is what it's going to look like inside our properties, right? Now we talked about measurement units, right? We can say pixels, right? And I can also say DP or DIP, density independent pixels. This is important too. That way it'll scale, right? If you put just pixels, what's wrong with that? That's an exact absolute measurement. And if my device has a lot higher density, one pixel may be something different to one device compared to another. We want our pixels to scale. So we're going to use DP. So we're going to change that. We can't leave it the way it is. We want to change the text size, right, to a larger DP. First, let's change the text color. And if you notice, we're going to choose this hollow blue dark color. So let's do that first. So here's my text color. I go to text color, and I'm going to pull down here's my different colors I have. Styles. I can go with an app theme color or whatever, but what I really want to choose is something that makes sense to me. So that right now I have app name and so on, right? If I want to define a new color for myself, I'm going to do that in styles. So I'm going to pull up my styles. I'm going to click on, and again, there's different options here. Look, take a look. There's S for strings, C for colors, D for DP, and so on. So I'm going to add a new style. I'm going to add a new color, right? And I can choose a special color that I want. First, I have to name it. Like, for example, I want to call it dark blue, right? And then I can choose a value, and it can be of type RGB or ARGB, A being alpha transparency. So let's choose a color that's really blue, like, for example, standard blue. Like R would be red, so we're going to put 0 for red. We're going to put G0 and blue FF, right? And we're going to save it. These are dark. That's actually not dark blue. It's regular blue. But let's leave it the way it is for now. Okay, now that I've defined my style, I can go back to my main activity main, and I can choose. If I choose my, I can choose my text color, right? And I can go to color, and I have my dark blue color that I set up. And press OK. Now it changes. That's the way we change our colors. Everything we do is hosted in a file. We can't just go ahead on the Android side and choose whatever color we want. We can, but the problem is programmatically it's the wrong thing to do. I'd rather change the stuff in a file as opposed to hard code it, which you can do if you really want to, but it'll give you an error. Okay. Here's the other choice. I want to change my size, right? And right now, I don't have a size class, so I can choose new dimension, right? And I can put my dimension in here. I can call my dimension, I call my dimension welcome, right? Welcome dimension, right? And I can assign my value, and let's say I make my value for now, let's maybe make my value like 20 dp. Press OK. And there it is. Now, if that's not big enough, and if I go back to my PowerPoint presentation, if you notice how big it is, back in the example, it's quite large, right? So it's obviously going to be not just this, it's going to be much larger than that. Yeah, I'm not going to choose this yet. But I want to make it much larger than that. I want to make it so that it's not just, you know, as an example, 20 dp. Let's make it like 40 dp. Because it's got to be bigger. It's just too small for me. This is what it's going to look like on your device, right? I want to make it like take up part of the screen here. So the only way to do that is to change the size class. So again, there's two ways to do that. I can go here in Dimens, and I can see my new size class is welcome Dimens, and change this from 20 dp, I don't know, to 40 dp. Click away, save everything, and when I go back to my activity.xml, save, it processes it, right? Now there's a problem here, right? It's not really centered or whatever. And what I want to do is I want to center it. I want to kind of modify my view and so on, right? So here's my text color, and I can kind of hide this. Here's my view. I can choose my padding, my scroll bars, all kinds of stuff like this that are here. I don't want to ever touch anything that says deprecated. See where it says deprecated? Don't touch this stuff, which means we don't really use it anymore. What I want to do is I want to get this options for gravity property, right? And gravity is what I want to hit next. So let's see if we can find our gravity property in here. So again, there's nothing in here. We're looking at our text view, right? Our text view property in here. Here's gravity down inside of our text view property, right? And I want to click onto this property, right? And again, there's different options here, right? We want to choose center, this one, and press OK. And it centers it up. It centers the text inside this thing altogether. Okay, let's keep going. We have a few slides left. All right, so again, you can see that this is what our app looks like approximately. If I want to put an image view in, which is what the next thing I want to do, I want to drag and drop an image view in here, right? It gives me some guides, right, that kind of align it with my other object. So let's take a look and see how that's done. So how do I drag and drop an image view? Well, it's over here on the left-hand side, right? So if I go images and media, there's an image view on the left-hand side, right? I can drag and drop this image view, and if you notice, it gives me these guides, right? These guides are because I'm using relative layout, right? Now it's going to say, hey, which image do you want, right? So it's asking you for your project resources, right? I can use project resources. I can use system resources. Like I can try and find something that's acceptable, right? Like for example, I might be able to find something else down here that I want to use, right? There's a bunch of system resources. You usually have the same set here. You know, of different system resources. I'm just going to pick one. Here, let's pick this IC_menu my places system resources option. IC_menu my places, this guy, and press OK. Okay, he's really small, right? Now what if I just kind of scale this image up? Let's scale. Can I scale the image up the way I want? Well, yeah, it does, right? But my question to you is, yeah, we can scale it, but see how this little warning symbol comes up? Take a look. It says, right, image view, accessibility, missing content description, right, for my image view. Right, that's one thing it means. And I also adjusted it manually. So here's my content description. So just in case I have an accessibility issue, like I'm a blind person and I want the phone to talk to me and tell me, as an example, what this thing is, I should really describe it. Like, you know, man with flag, whatever this thing is, right? Once I enter the accessibility view description, right, it should go away. However, here's the problem. I'm trying to enter it manually. Should I be entering it manually? Absolutely not. I should use a string. So I'm going to go new string, right? And I'm going to call it, my new string is going to be called like man with flag. Man with flag, right? That's the string, that's the actual, sorry, that's what I'm going to type in. So I'm going to put that here. And here I'm going to say man with flag. Press OK. Here's my man with flag, and press OK. Now it has a view, and my little warning went away. Okay, that's my image view. If you notice, they show a couple of these constraints. Take a look. My constraints show kind of a something that's on this right side and on the left side, and it's kind of showing me that, you know, it's not quite centered. Now, once I resize it, it resizes it back to normal, right? Of course, it's going to do that. I can also choose scale type. So if I go here to scale type, and again, I want to say, I can say fit X and Y, fit start, fit center, fit end. I can center it. See if I choose center. There's my center scale type. Or I can say fit X and Y. If I do this, right? That's another scaling I can do, right? But once I start putting this stuff in, and if I, by the way, if I want to remove it, I can just delete that value. That's what it does. If I scale it manually, though, like this, it'll work, right? But the problem is when I launch it on Android, we'll get weird results. What you really want to do is have additional drawables in here to call upon, not a system device that I just kind of downloaded and threw in here. Okay, let's launch this thing and see if it actually works now. So I'm going to save everything first. I'm going to go here and I'm going to go default. When I default my default configuration, it'll start to launch and it'll shut down my existing app and it'll throw over my new stuff. Right? Now it takes a few minutes to do that. And there it is. But you see how pixelated it is? I've tried to manually size this thing, right? And now because I've manually sized it, I've got this pixelation here. Now my font looks nice, right? It's nice and crisp, but this is ugly, right? Again, the other thing I can try and do is find some resources from the internet. Like let's say, for example, I want to find a picture from the internet that says man with a flag. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm just making it random. Man with a flag. Here's a guy, man with a flag. Okay, that's a pretty big image. It looks like, right? It's good. It's a good image because it's kind of a vector image, right? Okay, I want to save this thing. I'm just going to save image as. I'm going to throw it into my downloads for now. Okay, and save. You can put yours wherever you like. Okay, there's man with a flag.ping image, right? Okay, I want to use this one instead of this one. How do I swap that out? Well, here's my image view, right? And if you notice my source, it says drawable IC. Well, I want to put my source in there. So my question to you is, would you think it's possible for me to drag and drop, right? Because, you know, typically with other platforms, we want to be able to drag and drop. And where would this thing be? Well, should it go here? My recommendation is you put it in HDPI, which is this first one, right? So I'm going to kind of grab it and put it in here and see it says select how files should be imported to the project. Copy files or link files. I'm going to copy my file. There it is. And it says, invalid file name must contain only A to Z, 0 to 9, and underscore. So this thing here where I have a dash, because it's named with a dash, I need to rename this file, which I'm going to do right here. Be careful, because if you have weird files, as an example, it won't work properly. So I'm just going to call this man with, it's got to be all like this, flag.ping. Cool, now this is not an unusual name anymore. So I can choose the source of my object. I can choose it so that way it's now in my drawable, right? Man with flag appears there, right? Here's my man with flag. I'm pressing OK. And now my man with flag is changed. If I resize this thing, I can make it as big as I want. It's a vector image, right? Here's what the real image looks like, right? Man with flag. Welcome to Android development. And I can save this thing. Do a save, and now I'll run this thing on the device again. It's gonna first shut it down, and if you notice on the right hand side here, it's giving us an indication that it's launching the default app, and it's gonna bring it up in here again when it's done. There it is, much nicer, right? So again, I think the things, the takeaways for today, right? And I'd like to try to say, one, there's lots of buggy errors with Eclipse. That's a takeaway, right? I'm not going to say, we worked all last week to try and get our stuff downloaded. We had some buggy errors today. We got 4.1 work. Most of us, I'll say, I can't say all of us. Most of us got 4.1 working for Eclipse, right? Which is, I think, which we should stay with for the next example we do next week, right? Next week I will be giving you like I said, your next project. You should be finished or pretty much finished with your assignment number 4. And your assignment number 5, right, will be this. Right, would be something to do with an app. Okay, so one more thing before we depart. We talked about putting buttons on this thing too, right? Oh, I just closed my AVD. That's great. Don't do that. Do not close your AVD. Whatever you do, otherwise you'll doom yourself to death, right? In fact, what I'll do is while I'm talking, I'll run this thing again, so I'll launch it in the background. Because I don't want to talk about it while I'm doing this. So this will launch. When it's done, it'll come up, right? Okay, so I want to include a button. This is an image, right? But it doesn't do anything right now. How do I kind of lay down a button? Well, if I go in terms of different objects, I have form widgets, right? And one of my form widgets is a button, right? I can certainly drag and drop the button down inside my screen, and it'll try and position it relative to my other objects. So create relative positioning. Now, if I want to change the text of my button, I got to do the same thing. I got to go to, so here's my button. My text is button. That's wrong. I also should probably rename my button because my button just says button. So I'm going to create an ID for this thing. And if you notice in the outline on the right hand side, I have an image view that I haven't named. I should rename this thing, right? I should edit the ID, and I should, instead of image view, I should put man with flag image view. I know it sounds long. It's much easier for us to differentiate what this will be later on. Press OK. So that's what this is. Same thing with button, right? We're going to say our welcome button. We're going to change this. We're going to edit the ID. We're going to change this to welcome button because it's a welcome app. You should always do something like this and press OK. Here's our welcome button, right? Okay, cool. Now it still says button. If I wanted to say welcome, I got to create something else, right? For example, I need to create a new string. So instead of it saying button, I want to make it so it's going to be called a welcome button string, right? So welcome button string. It's okay to put that in there like that. And then we're just going to say welcome. Press OK. And press OK again. And now the name changes to welcome. We need to do it that way every time. Now, if I want to make this button do something, that's a different story altogether, right? Remember, in Visual Studio, we double-click, right? Let's double-click on the button. No, it's not that easy, guys. It takes us here, right, into our XML layout. That's not what we want. We don't want to mess with anything in here, right? If we type in things manually here, again, you could break your view. And you don't want to be doing that, right? How about here in our main activity? Could I call my button, right? So here I am at onCreate, right, as an example, and I want to create a button handler. How do I create a button handler for my button? I got to be able to call it somehow, right? Well, the great thing is it knows about the button because I named it out here in activity main. I called it welcome button, right? Here it is, welcome button. That's the ID of the button, right? And I also have a view, right? If I go to the view itself, if I go back right down to the bottom, it says I have a thing called clickable, right? So clickable is true. I can turn that off and on. But here's where I have something else. Look where it says on click. So name of the method in this view's context to invoke the view when the view is clicked. When this button, every control is called a view of some sort or another. This is a button view, if you will, right? I want to click on this thing here, this on click event, right? And if you notice, it says, what's my resolved value, right? How can I can go to project resources or whatever. I can also type in what it's going to be called. So if I say, welcome button click, will this solve my issue? Press enter. Right? Is there a welcome button click handler? Right? What if I go back to main XML, main activity Java? Right? Give me a second. Will it exist here? Right? And here's the other question. If I start typing, if I go down in here and start typing some kind of button handler as an example, will it work? Right? Like, can I call in, let's see if I can call the welcome button. Welcome button, right? If I go control space, right? I have welcome, the kind of a method that I don't have in here. I have, this weird token, but I don't have anything that's in here. Oh, look, it disappeared. It's not like it created something that I can access. I can't even go to system resources and choose something that's already pre-done for me. There's nothing in here. It won't write my code for me. In other words, I got to write it all myself. So that's one thing. You'd be forgiven to think that this is what you do here in Visual Studio, or sorry, in Android, right? Visual Studio, you double click, you get your handler. In Android, it's not the case. So really quickly, if you didn't know how to do it and you want to add a button, and this, by the way, goes with anything you want. If you Google it, right? Seriously. So button handler Android. How do I do it, right? If I can actually type properly. There's different resources. Here's one. Button Android developers, right? And look, here's my activity. This is good to say. Here's onCreate. I'm in the onCreate, and inside here I have a button that I define. We did this before, right? And if you notice, we have a button ID, right? r.id.buttonID. That's what our button is called, right? So I need to declare a button, and I need to point it to my my button ID that I have. Let's try that. And by the way, this is inside my onCreate function. So onCreate means when the view is created, I want to create my button. So I want to declare a button, right? And if you notice, it's got to be a final button. Final, what's final again? Constant. Let's try and type this out. See if it works. Find view by ID. right? And if you know find view by ID, and I put r dot ID dot, and I want to find the ID, which is my button ID, whatever the button ID is called, right? And I want to find the button. Look, here's my welcome button, right? It finds it. Right now it's giving me an error because, and it says import button Android widget. So I'm going to do that for my error. And up here it imports the button. I have to do an import for my button. So now I've defined my button, right? That's one thing I need to do. And if you look back here, I need to set the click listener, right, to a new anonymous function. This looks just like JavaScript to me, right? So button dot set, right, click listener. Here it is. Set on click listener is what it is. Set on click listener, right? And under the set on click listener, we're going to do a new anonymous on click listener. So new view dot on click listener, right? It's a new anonymous function, right? And when we do that, we have to set up a new anonymous function after this thing. And look what it did. It actually created a stub for us right away, right? So this is where we talked about anonymous inner classes. Here's an example of that that's been created for us right away. So as soon as I did this view on click listener, it did all this extra stuff in here, and it created my anonymous class. Now I don't have to do this on click view, right? Just like it says here, it has a public void on click with a view, and here's my inside here where it says to do auto-generated method. I can change my text property of my welcome to something else, right? Well, how do I access my text property? Well, I got to declare it up here. I got to create some kind of outlet, right? And of course, the only way I can declare an outlet is if I do something like declare my text. So let's go back to my activity main. I have this thing, and if you notice this thing here, if I scroll up, it's called a welcome text view with a text property. That's what it is, welcome text view. So I want to change my text view property when I click my button, right? Very simple. I want to change this like to, you know, hello or something. So I need to take this property, welcome text view, and assign it to a text label, right? So again, if I look at my Android text, right, and I scroll down and I want to find, now this is the, I want to kind of change, go back. I want to change the, when I click on the button, I want to change my text label, right? So change text view Android. And if I go back down here, it basically I can append text. That's not what I want. This is incorrect. It's not what I'm looking for. But you can see, like, even if I'm not even paying attention to a format or whatever, this does it here. So on click listener, I'm going to choose my action to perform in here. And then, of course, what I want to do is I want to change my text view. So I want to find view by ID again, and I want to use the set text method. So whatever my view is, set text to new text. That's what I want to do. But okay, let's see if I can do that without declaring a variable. Let's just do it anonymously. So here, I like this find view by ID thing, right? So find view by ID. And my guess is I won't be able to do this, by the way. r.id. And I want to find my text view, which is, I think it's called welcome text view.
Probably choose find view by ID. Just be a lowercase.
Okay, so that's what that is. Find view by ID, right? And set text methods, right? So I want to assign this thing to something else, like a text view. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do here. I'm going to say kind of one of these. I'm going to go final, and let's see if there's some kind of text view, right? I'm going to say, and this let's say my text view equals to new, and it's a button, right? Is equals to some kind of text view. Let's see if there is some kind of text view that I can download. Import Android widget. It is. I imported the widget, and of course I'm going to change this to text view, right? And that's what it becomes. So I've declared my text view as a text view with a reference to welcome text view, right? And then in here I'm going to say text view dot set text, which is what, oh, not that one, sorry, my text view dot set text. I'll be okay. There it is. My dot set text, and then there's a character sequence. There's a bunch of different signatures for this, right? But what I really want to do is just set the text manually. Now it's going to complain, but I could probably still do it if I just use one of these things. Character sequence. So let's just say I put in something like hello. Make sense? So here's my anonymous method. I created a button listener. This looks almost like how we do things in JavaScript, right? This is anonymous handler. Right? We can actually do this different ways. And then inside the handler, there's another anonymous inner class that we're going to use. Here it is, the onClick. And this anonymous inner class, this is what really messes people up with Android. It's a different kind of construct. This is where you put in the onClick class, right? So if this is true, and if I've done everything correctly, then I should be able to deploy. Let's see, first of all, if it deployed my site yet, and it did not. Let's go back to my console and see what happened. Oh, it's starting the intent. I love it. It's taking its sweet time. I'm going to go through here. Sorry, wrong one. I'm going to go through here and set default and see if I can do that already. I like the 5. It's awesome. Starting activity, activity manager starting, intent, and we got nothing. But the idea is here. This is what we do. And I know it looked complicated, but you're going to see that Java is very similar to JavaScript when it comes to event handling, right? When it comes to Android stuff. Like, this is something we can understand, this code. This is not out of our realm, right? Now, if only my AVD would work, I'd be good, right? Fortunately, my AVD does not work. It's not because my Android is not working, but rather because I closed my AVD. Oh, hold on. This might even be a good sign. How about that? I don't know if have you guys tried it? Does it work for you? So we got to kind of end. We're kind of over time right now. All right, one more time. Yeah. Now, this isn't my error. It's the error with the AVD, to be honest with you. Because I closed it down and I reopened it. There's no attachment. anyways, at the end of the day, right, what we've done is created this click listener. But first, we need to do a couple things. One, we create a reference to my control, right? And once we create a reference to the control, then what we can do is we create a listener. Yeah, I'm dreaming if I think it's going to work. Not brought to the front. So that may it could be that it's I'm creating an error. There's some kind of error that I've got here in my code. That's my issue now. And again, if I want to check that to make sure that I have a problem, right? This is my onCreate options menu. Of course, I did it in the wrong place. I want to take all this stuff here, right? Which is this, and I want to cut it out, right? And I want to put it, this is my problem, I want to put it here. And now I want to run it. And that's why it wasn't coming up, because it was an actual error. Well, it shows that it's doing something, but unfortunately my intent is showing nothing. Okay, so next week, guys, we'll have fixed all these problems. I'll give you your application to run. You're going to have to run. I'm going to test this thoroughly again at home. So when I come in here, we're going to have more problems, because even though I tested thoroughly at home, it still doesn't work when I'm here, right? But after we do that, no, seriously, I'll make it work. I'll test it on different AVDs, and then I'll give you your homework with an AVD that works, even if I have to give you the piece parts to it. And that's it for me.